What's going on, nation? Welcome to another installment of my Versus series. In these videos, I compare popular exercises to help you decide which is best for your gains. If you missed any of my previous episodes, I will link to the entire playlist down in the info section below. As for today, we'll be comparing the barbell bent-over row versus the T-bar row to see which exercise will help you build a more muscular back. But before we get started, be sure to click that notification bell so you never miss a new video upload. Also, guys, don't forget that I have links down in that info section below for all my 12-week muscle building programs that are guaranteed to help you guys see some serious gains. Now, while both exercises are amazing compound movements to include in your back workouts, they constitute a very similar pulling pattern, which means including them both in the same workout can become redundant. So, if I only had to choose one, which would it be and why? Well, first of all, let's take a brief look at the anatomy of the back. The biggest muscle in the back is the latissimus dorsi, or lats for short. The lats originate in the lower spine and insert all the way up into the humerus, or upper arm bone. And as for building muscle, most people have mentally linked lat training and growth to vertical pulling movements such as pull-ups and pull-downs. And in the same way, they've linked mid-back growth and thickness to rowing movements. To take it a step further, people usually equate training for back width to vertical pulling movements and training for back thickness to rowing movements, which actually couldn't really be farther from the truth. The truth of the matter is that proper rowing utilizing exercises such as the T-bar row or the bent-over row can build both the thickness and width of the back depending on your form. This is because there are slight adjustments you can make to either exercise to target your lats or your upper back, which includes traps, rhomboids, and rear delts. And we'll take an in-depth look at those adjustments in this video. But first, let's go over proper form for each movement. First up is the barbell bent-over row, and it can be performed several different ways, but the best way to target your entire lats is to use an underhand grip. This is because an overhand grip will bring a lot more upper back traps and delts into the movement. Now, an underhand grip will activate a bit more biceps as a secondary muscle group, but it will also take the majority of the upper back muscles out of the equation during the movement. Additionally, you will be much stronger with an underhand grip, and you'll be able to move more weight. Remember, guys, moving more weight means more overload for the lats, and consequently, more growth in the long run. Now, I have done a full video covering proper form and the 7 most common mistakes associated with bent-over rows, and I'll link to it down in the info section below. But let's get into it quickly here as well. Alright guys, so the most important aspect of this exercise is going to be the setup, before you even touch the barbell. And this will make or break how much weight you can lift when doing this movement. You see a lot of people in the gym when they go to approach the barbell for a bent-over row, is they stand pretty stiff like this with a slight bend in their knees, and they bend over and they start performing the movement like this. And what you'll quickly notice is that as you're bent over like this, your chest is basically over your toes, you start to feel a lot of fatigue throughout your lower back extremely fast, especially if you're using heavier weight. So the most important thing to keep in mind when doing this exercise, no matter what variation of it you're doing, you got to sit between your legs like this. So you're almost pushing your hips back as you bend over. And if you want to think about it mentally like this, think that your chest should be kind of in line with your feet. So not over them, more in line with them. And there's a big difference between doing this and then doing this. You can be a lot more stable, lift a lot more weight, and be able to handle a lot more repetitions. Now, to perform the movement with the actual barbell, like I said, our goal is not upper back, so we're not going to do overhand, we're going to do underhand. And you want to hold the barbell just outside of shoulder width, so you have plenty of room to stand with your legs far apart. If your hands are too close, they're going to get in the way of your legs, obviously. So grab just outside of shoulder width. And then once you get into place, you're going to sit back, bring it down like this, get that nice deep stretch at the bottom. And on every single repetition, you're going to pull the weight into your belly button, and then come back down, get that nice stretch at the bottom, and then pull into your belly button. And if you want to use strict form, you're not using momentum, you're not pushing through your feet, you're not swinging back and forth. You're just using your arms to complete the movement, and make sure when you pull to the top, get that nice tight squeeze in your back and actually feel your lats engaging on every single repetition. Again, guys, the underhand grip barbell bent over row will enable you to better target the lower lats because the bar travels closer to your hips and you're pulling it towards your belly button. But the overhand grip variation has its place as well, as it still activates your lats, but this variation will focus more on the upper lats, and it will also heavily activate the upper back muscles like the rear delts, traps, and rhomboids, as I said earlier. So choose the variation that goes best with the rest of the exercises in your workout. For example, if you begin your workout with weighted chin-ups, which we know target the lower lats, you might want to use an overhand grip when you move on to the barbell bent over row. Knowledge is power, guys, and you need to be smart about your training. Finally, believe it or not, there is actually a third variation of the barbell bent over row, and it's called the Yates row. And the Yates row, coined by Dorian Yates, is practically a bent over barbell row without really the bending over component. So your torso will be almost upright, maybe about a 20 to 30 degree bend, and this way you'll be able to handle much heavier weights since you won't be limited by your posterior chain strength. However, this exercise is something in a league of its own since it will mainly target your upper back rather than your lat. So to recap, if you want to target your lats with any variation of the bent over row, be sure to bend over as much as possible, ideally until you're parallel to the floor. Now let's move on to the T-bar row, and the mechanics of this exercise are almost identical to the barbell bent over row, but this time you'll need a close grip attachment to pull the weight to your torso. To set up for the T-bar row, you're going to be using basically the same form mechanics as you did for the barbell bent over row. One thing I forgot to mention with that exercise, guys, whenever you're doing rowing movements like this, you want to be as parallel to the floor as possible. You don't want to be doing the barbell bent over row standing up like this because you're reducing the range of motion, getting less muscle activation. You want to be as parallel to the floor as possible with your chest. Same goes for this exercise. Now, as you can see, I have a slightly wider stance when doing this movement, mainly because I'm straddling the barbell, but it's all the same, guys, in terms of sitting back and being between your legs like this versus bending over like that. You don't want your chest going past your toes. You want your chest pretty much in line with your toes. And then for this movement too, remember, we're trying to hit the lats as hard as possible so that when you pull this barbell up, you want to pull it into your belly button as much as you can. You don't want to be pulling it into your upper chest like this, activating more upper back and rear delts. So step forward a little bit if you need to, and once you're into position, get your attachment, palms facing in, get a nice tight grip, pull that weight into your torso as much as you can, squeeze for a second, bring it back down, make sure you get a nice deep stretch in your lats, pull up, and repeat this movement for repetitions until you complete your entire set. Also, one thing you should know about the close grip attachment is that because your hands are in a neutral position and close together, you'll always be able to lift more weight with this exercise, as this is the strongest possible position you can be in when performing a row. Also keep in mind that you have more freedom with the range of motion of this movement, and if you pull the barbell toward your belly button, you will target more of your lower lats. And if you pull the barbell more towards your chest, you'll target more of your upper lats and mid-back. Another quick tip for you guys, you can also try using 25s instead of 45-pound plates, which are smaller in diameter. This will allow for a much greater range of motion because with the 45s, your range of motion ends as soon as the plates touch your torso. But by using 25-pound plates, you'll be adding 2 to 3 inches to the range of motion, which will add up over the course of 8 to 10 repetitions. Remember, every small detail like this counts, especially when you're a natural lifter. So now that we know how to properly and safely execute both exercises, let's move on to some key differences which will ultimately help you decide which exercise is more advantageous to include in your back workouts. First up, muscle activation and versatility. Now, depending on which muscles you're specifically trying to target, both exercises will get you there. The difference is that you'll have a lot more options when it comes to the barbell bent over row. You can use either an underhand or overhand grip, as well as a narrow, medium, or wide grip, which all affect how the muscles are targeted in your back. Also, guys, you can easily switch between grips and even change the form you use per set if you're performing multiple sets of this exercise in your workout. So it's easy to see that the barbell bent over row is a more versatile exercise to have in your workout routine. Next is equipment needed. This is a very obvious difference, guys. But aside from the barbell and weights that is required for both exercises, you'll also need a neutral grip handle for the T-bar row, as well as a way to anchor the barbell to the ground during the movement. Granted, you don't have to use a landmine attachment to anchor the barbell, as sticking it into the corner of a wall with some weights on top works just as well. But having said that, the barbell bent over row is far simpler when it comes to setting up, so it kind of wins this point as well. But now let's talk about lower back and posterior chain strength requirements. We all know that the back muscles are very powerful, and to properly train them for growth, we need to overload them with a lot of weight. But the problem with the barbell bent over row is that the maximum amount of weight you'll be able to move is limited by your lower back and leg strength. This is because the weight is actually in front of your body when you bend over and start pulling the barbell towards your torso. However, with the T-bar row, the barbell starts behind you and the weight is directly underneath the center of your body, which means you'll be in a much more stable position to move more weight without compromising your lower back. Additionally, the neutral grip attachment will allow for a far greater lat and upper back stretch at the bottom of the movement. And if we consider how important the weighted stretch is for growing the back, this makes for a very compelling point to pick the T-bar row out of the two. As for range of motion, whether you're using 25-pound or 45-pound plates, the range of motion for the T-bar row will be slightly shorter than the barbell bent over row. This is because the barbell bent over row stops when the bar hits your torso, but the T-bar row stops as soon as the plate hit your torso, which results in a shorter range of motion. So which is the better exercise for some serious muscle growth in your back? Well, to be honest, guys, both exercises are amazing compound movements, and you really can't go wrong with whichever one you end up choosing. The barbell bent over row is more versatile, offers a bit more range of motion, and is simpler to perform. But if I had to choose right now which exercise I would add to my back workout, it would be the T-bar row. And the deciding factor for me is that I want to overload my back with as much weight as possible, and the T-bar row definitely has far more overloading potential. Guys, overloading your muscles with heavy weights is vital to getting them to adapt and grow. Also, with the T-bar row, you'll be able to lift more weight without compromising your lower back, and the maximum weight you'll be able to move won't be dependent on your posterior chain strength. This exercise also provides an amazing weighted stretch at the bottom of the range of motion, and it can still be performed either upright to target more of the upper back or completely bent over to hammer your lats. Lastly, if you're utilizing my cheat and recover method of training, the T-bar row will allow you to be a lot more explosive concentrically during the cheat because you can use your leg muscles to help with a bit of momentum. Then when it comes to the recover reps, it's also much easier to peel off a few plates and get right into those. So there you have it, guys. If you're looking to create a new badass back workout, I highly recommend you incorporate the T-bar row as either the first or second exercise of the routine. But if you don't have a way to perform T-bar rows, the barbell bent over row is still an excellent exercise if used with an underhand grip to target those lats. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. Leave comments below so I know which two exercises you want to see compared next. And as always, more good stuff coming soon. See you guys.